My name is Marin Vale, 29 years old. The night my phone lit up, I was still in my scrubs, standing over a carton of cold lo mein. I couldn't justify buying. I'd worked 12 hours straight, the kind of shift that blurs faces and turns voices into static, and I was halfway to kicking off my shoes when the screen flashed, "Mom." I almost let it go to voicemail. Then I pictured the creases at the corners of her mouth when she's frightened, and I swiped to answer. "Marin," she said, breath already breaking. "Don't go to Hawaii, please. The mortgage is behind. 2 months. Your father's hours got cut again. And the bank. They started the paperwork." I pressed the phone tighter, letting the cool counter steady my elbows. Behind her words, I could hear the TV, the clink of a glass, a muffled voice that might have been my dad's. "How far behind?" I asked. 8,700, she said. Too fast, like she'd practiced the number. "Exactly. It has to be in by tomorrow or they'll tack on more fees. We're drowning, honey. Your sister isn't handling it. Her voice thinned into a sob. "Put Dad on," I said. There was a shuffle, the scratch of the receiver against cloth, and then my father's voice, low and brief, like he was peeking through a door he didn't want to open. "Thank you, honey. You're saving us." 5 seconds. Click. Back to Mom. She cried again, and I wanted to ask what happened to the hours he said were coming back any day, to the overtime he always talked about when the numbers didn't add up. I wanted to ask where Lily was, if the late-night giggles I heard were hers, or if she'd slid into the camera frame and mouthed something cold. I didn't ask. I stared at the suitcase I'd left by the door, a small navy one I'd bought secondhand, and thought about the calendar reminder for October, the week I'd ring-fence around my life and fill with ocean air. "I'll wire it in the morning," I said, "if this is really what it's for." "I swear," she said. So quickly the word hit the speaker and bounced back at me. "On everything." After we hung up, I stood still for a long time. The kitchen light felt too bright, like a fluorescent sun. The lo mein had congealed into a sticky ribbon. The fortune cookie said, "You will soon travel to a place you have longed to see." I put the cookie in a drawer and turned off the light. Before bed, I opened the savings app I'd watched like a plant for 2 years. Drip by drip. Another little deposit after picking up an extra shift, after saying no to dinners, after threading the price of joy into a line item called later. Hawaii was the light at the end of a tunnel I had built with my own 2 hands. I stared at the balance and said, out loud to my empty apartment, "Family first." In the morning, I moved $8,700 across the thin, digital bridge that turns intention into absence. No one texted thank you. I told myself they were in crisis, that gratitude could drown, just like bills could. Work swallowed me again. Charts, alarms, the quiet heroism of coffee. At night, I lay on my couch with my shoes finally off, scrolling past travel reels I didn't bookmark anymore. I thought of my dad washing his dark blue Accord on Sundays, the citrus smell of his cleaner, the way he'd say below market value like it was a prayer. I thought of Lily's curated grin and her captions that always cut someone just a little. I told myself I was being uncharitable. I told myself October could be November or May. 6 days later, I was sorting laundry on the carpet when my phone buzzed. It was Uncle Steve, the only relative who uses punctuation like honesty. His text was short. "I figured you hadn't seen this. You should." A screenshot landed in the thread. Lily's private album, the one I wasn't allowed to see, the one where my family pretended the block button never hurt anyone. Photo after photo. My parents and Lily at a beachfront resort layered in luminous blues and golds. Not a budget place. Infinity pools that looked carved out of sky. Private cabanas with gauzy curtains. Spa selfies with cucumber slices and champagne flutes. My father's arm slung around my mother's shoulder like nothing had ever been late in their life. Lily leaning back on a chaise, a tropical drink the color of a coral reef in her hand, sunglasses with cat eye corners mirroring the horizon. Then the group shot, the one that did me in. The caption read, "Vacation without loser." Everyone was tagged. Cousins I hadn't spoken to since we were kids. 2 aunts who only text chain prayers and casseroles. An uncle who still calls me kiddo in a tone that subtracts 10 years from my life. Everyone but me. I stared until my eyes burned, waiting for the joke to appear. Maybe it was an inside reference. Maybe she meant loser as in, what, losing the stress? If I said it to myself enough times, it might make sense, but it didn't. It was targeted, deliberate, a tiny spear dipped in neon. My brain tried to split into pieces. One part rewound the phone call, Mom's ragged breath, Dad's 5-second benediction. Another part replayed the number, $8,700, the exactness of it, how it clicked in her mouth. Another part saw the spa robe slipping off Lily's tanned shoulder and heard the laugh I knew she saved for stories. I imagined my name appearing in their messages like a punchline. I scrolled again. A seafood tower stacked like architecture, matching lies and a sunset so stunning I could have forgiven anything but the caption. I pinched the screen wider and saw my mother's hand midair, a soft wave toward whoever took the picture. She looked younger in that light, relief smoothing her forehead. I wanted to be glad for that. I really did. The dryer buzzed. The apartment smelled like warm cotton. I put the phone down, picked up a towel, folded it, put it down, picked up the phone again. Another message from Uncle Steve. Want me to call? I typed and erased 3 replies. Instead, I wrote, "Thank you, that's all." I didn't call my parents. I didn't text Lily. I didn't post a cryptic quote about betrayal or family or oceans turning. I sat on the carpet with piles of clothes around me, like a low skyline, and let the silence inside me rearrange its furniture. The word loser floated across the room and tried to settle on my chest. I wouldn't let it. I was the one who said yes to the midnight shifts, to the 4 a.m. alarms, to the slow savings that felt like stacking pebbles into a hill. I was a lot of things, some better than others, but I wasn't that. I thought about the last time Dad mentioned tight months and said luck would turn soon. He has a gambler's optimism even when he doesn't touch a card, a way of believing a windfall is a personality trait. I thought about the time Lily posted a photo of a modest staycation, and the tag revealed a hotel with a lobby chandelier bigger than my bathroom. I thought about Mom's voice when she swears on everything, and how sometimes it sounds like she's swearing away the only thing that matters. The apartment went dim as the sun slid behind the neighboring building. The suitcase by the door looked smaller in the half-light, its handles tucked like shoulders. For 2 years, I'd let that suitcase represent permission. To rest, to leave, to be nobody's hero but my own. I had given it up in a breath. In the glow of my phone screen, I saw what I was really looking at in those photos, what they had paid for with my weeks and my weary bones. They weren't anxious. They weren't scrambling in a bank lobby pleading for extensions. They were basking. They were laughing. And when they reached for a word to anchor their joy, they chose me and turned me into a joke. I didn't cry. I didn't rehearse a speech. I didn't drive across town for a confrontation that would end with me apologizing for my tone. Something shifted. Not loud, not dramatic, but plate deep under my ribs. It wasn't anger, not yet. It was clarity. A clean sound, like glass, set gently on a table. They took my vacation. Fine. I would take something they didn't think I'd touch. Not to hurt them. For once, I would tell the truth like a ledger tells it. I would rebalance what they had unbalanced. I would make sure the next time they raised a glass, they felt the weight of what it was filled with. I set the phone down and picked up my keys. The spare one, the slim silver that lived in the dish by the door, gleamed in the last light of the day. I turned it over in my palm, feeling the little notch that caught at the pad of my thumb. They had given it to me last year when a 3 a.m. airport ride was easier if you take Dad's car, and then never asked for it back. They had forgotten. I hadn't. I didn't call anyone to tell them what I'd seen. I didn't warn them. I sat on the couch and watched the room grow darker until my reflection on the window looked like a woman I recognized, and decided I preferred stillness to spectacle. I would move quietly, the way I've always moved, except this time not to serve, not to soften, not to rescue. This time to reclaim. They thought I'd never find out. They thought I'd never act. They thought I would fold myself into the shape of their need and say yes until my edges disappeared. I looked at the suitcase, then at the key, and felt the same calm I imagine ocean swimmers feel when they decide to go under the next wave instead of letting it knock them over. They took my vacation, so I was going to take something from them. The next evening, I took the bus across town, my spare key pressed between my fingers like a secret. The September air had cooled, and the ride felt longer than it should have, every stop dragging time out. I got off 5 blocks from their place, walked past shuttered stores and dim porch lights, forcing myself to look like anyone else strolling after dinner. My heart beat hard enough to echo in my ears, but my face stayed calm. That was the trick. I wasn't sneaking. I wasn't stealing. I was reclaiming what was already mine in a language they'd understand. Their driveway glowed faintly under the street lamp. There it was, Dad's blue Honda Accord, polished, proud, the car he worshipped like it was a second child. Even from the sidewalk, I could smell the faint lemon cleaner he used every weekend, his ritual of wiping down every inch until his reflection winked back at him. I held the key steady, slid it into the lock, and it turned as smoothly as if the car had been waiting for me all along. Inside, the seats carried the scent of him, cologne mixed with old receipts and the ghost of takeout bags. I sat for a moment, hands on the wheel, letting the leather mold to me. A thought crossed my mind. He babied this car more tenderly than he ever babied me. I started the engine. It purred, unbothered, as if nothing unusual was happening. I didn't just drive it home. I drove it like it was already mine. The next morning, I filed for a new title. The DMV was gray and humming, numbers flashing on monitors, while people slouched in plastic chairs. Uncle Steve came with me, leaning against the counter with arms crossed, his voice calm but pointed when he said, "If they want to report it stolen, they'll have to testify under oath where they really were when you supposedly stole it." He gave me a half smile, the kind that doesn't need exaggeration. "Let me know when you're ready to take the house next." 3 days later, their plane landed, and my phone lit up like fireworks. First Mom, "Where is the car?" Then Lily, "Tell me you didn't actually take Dad's car. WTF is wrong with you?" Then Dad, "Marin, call me right now." I let them pile up, unread, unanswered. I wanted them to stew in the same silence I had sat in with that caption burning my chest. I wanted panic to sink its claws into them. When I finally answered, Mom's voice tore through the line, shrill enough to make me hold the phone away. "How could you do this to us? Theft? Betrayal? Do you even realize what you've done?" Her words came in a rush, sharp, high-pitched, dripping with a kind of outrage that only works if the listener has guilt. "I didn't. Not anymore." Dad's voice slipped in next, smoother, slower, but worse in its own way. He was careful, calculated, weaving guilt into every syllable. "Marin, you've misunderstood. You don't see the full picture. We trusted you, and now you're punishing us? How could you be so petty?" I let him finish, then spoke evenly, each word a drop of cold water. "How was the resort? Did the spa make betrayal easier to swallow? Did the champagne taste sweeter with a side of my 8,700? For a moment, there was silence. Thick, heavy silence. I pictured them frozen, eyes wide, realizing the game was up. "I saw everything," I said, my voice flat, unshaken. "I know you lied, and you're lucky all I took was the car." Then I hung up. No one called back immediately. A few hours later, Lily posted one of her passive-aggressive Instagram stories, black screen with white text. "Some people in the family are so fake. Jealous losers can't stand to see others happy." I screenshotted it and smiled. That was her pattern. Mask cruelty as sass, mask insecurity as confidence. They still thought they had the upper hand, still thought they could spin it. They had no idea I'd already stepped out of the role of the quiet, forgiving daughter. They didn't know I had no intention of stopping with the car. For 2 days, I ignored everything. Calls, texts, pleas disguised as demands. I sat in my apartment, the Accord safe outside, and started digging. Old emails, saved texts, Facebook posts from years back. I had never connected the dots before, but now the lines lit up like a constellation. There was Mia, my cousin, who lent them $3,000 for Lily's textbooks. I found the receipts. Tuition never touched. That money disappeared the same month Dad's poker buddies bragged about a new set of chips. Then Aunt Sandra, who gave up part of Grandpa's inheritance because Mom swore the roof was caving in. The roof was fine. The patio wasn't. They'd used it for a birthday bash for Lily's boyfriend, string lights, and a rented tent. The more I found, the calmer I felt. No need for anger, no need for shouting, just dates, numbers, names, receipts. The truth itself was damning enough. I wrote it out in a neat, careful draft. No drama, no venom, just facts. And then I sent it privately, to Mom, to Dad, to Lily. The message was simple. You stole my money. You lied. You laughed at me. You can apologize and make this right, or this goes public. You choose. It took 5 minutes. Mom called back, her sobs different this time. Real, shaky, scared. Please, Marin, don't. We can fix this. Tell me what you want. I want you to admit it, I said. All of it. Not just to me. Publicly. On Facebook. Where you made your little joke. Tell the truth. She begged. Said people wouldn't understand. Said it would humiliate them. I told her I didn't care. Lily's response came next. Smug, even through text. It was just a joke. You're acting psychotic. Talk to us like a normal person instead of this. I ignored her. Then I messaged Brian, the golden child, the favorite who floated through family dinners, untouched by expectation. I sent him the screenshots. Every word, every photo, every receipt. I'm done protecting them, I wrote. If you don't want to be part of the fallout, stay quiet. He didn't reply. That was fine. Silence told me everything I needed. For the first time in years, I felt the scales tip. No more gaslighting, no more guilt trips. They were the ones cornered now. They knew it. I could hear the shift in every pause, every unanswered message. But I also knew them, knew their pattern. They wouldn't fold, not right away. They'd try to twist it, to paint me as the problem. They'd find a way to make my fury into instability, my proof into paranoia. And I wasn't wrong. Because when the explosion came, it came not in a call, but in the extended family group chat, the one I usually muted because of endless forwarded memes and chain prayers. That day, I was glad I checked. Out of nowhere, Mom dropped a wall of text the size of a confession. She wrote that while they were away on a modest little break, I had snuck onto their property and stolen their only vehicle. She claimed I was unstable, that I was refusing to return it, that they were in touch with legal counsel. And then she ended it with a line that made my stomach twist and my throat laugh at the same time. We love Marin deeply, but this behavior is a cry for help. Please be patient with her. A cry for help. They weren't just lying. They were staging. Building a script where I was the unhinged villain and they were the patient, loving parents. I almost applauded the audacity. But they underestimated Uncle Steve. Kathy, he wrote, his message clipped and direct. Are you sure you want to lie like that in a group chat? I've seen the receipts, including Lily's loser post. Then he dropped 3 screenshots. The beach photo, the caption, the bank transfer. My name, their account. Proof so clean it sang. For 5 minutes, silence. Then Aunt Mia, wait, is that where my $3,000 went last year? You told me it was for Lily's tuition. Then Aunt Sandra, you did the same to me with Grandpa's inheritance. Said it was for repairs. Bought a patio and threw a party instead. Then Cousin Jenna, who never spoke in the chat. They told me they paid off the mortgage last year. I asked for help in May and they said they couldn't, said they were broke. One by one, voices rose, threads weaving into a net of truth. Lily left the chat without a word. Mom scrambled a follow-up. We didn't mean to upset anyone. Misunderstandings. We'll resolve with Marin privately. Too late. My inbox filled with messages. Cousins, aunts, even distant relatives. Some angry, some apologetic, some admitting they'd always had a weird feeling. And then the message I never expected, from Brian. They told me you donated the money, said you decided not to go to Hawaii, said you didn't want to travel anymore. I had no idea. I stared at it, stunned. For once he wasn't defending them. He wasn't shrugging it off. Do you believe me now? I asked. A minute later, yeah, I do. I'm sorry. I didn't know how to feel. Relief, maybe. Or just confirmation of what I already knew. They hadn't just used me. They'd lied to everyone, even him. And now, the family script they'd written for years was unraveling thread by thread. The group chat went silent after Brian's message. No one else spoke, not for hours, maybe not for days. But I could feel it. Threads unraveling behind screens, hushed phone calls between aunts, cousins doing math they should have done years ago. Their empire of small lies and borrowed sympathy was collapsing, and I hadn't even gone public yet. I waited. Let the dust settle just enough. Then, 1 week later, I did it. I posted everything. Not a vague quote, not an anonymous thread, not a cryptic story with a sad song playing faintly behind it. No, I posted the whole truth. Screenshots of the wire transfer, photos of their resort vacation, Lily's vacation without loser caption, and a carefully written explanation of what had happened. I detailed the phone call where they swore they were drowning, swore they'd lose the house, swore on everything. I explained how that $8,700 was my Hawaii trip, 2 years of saving in scraps and shifts, how I gave it up without hesitation, believing them, and how a week later they toasted tropical cocktails to my gullibility. I didn't stop there. I added the other pieces, the lies to Mia, to Sandra, to Jenna. I listed dates, numbers, no exaggerations, just cold, plain truth. Because when the truth is ugly enough, you don't need to dress it up. Then I pressed post. At first, nothing. A like or two, a pity emoji. Then, within 15 minutes, shares. Then comments. Then more likes, the numbers climbing like a wave I couldn't stop even if I wanted to. My inbox lit up. Old friends, coworkers, even people I hadn't spoken to since high school. Some were supportive, some outraged, a few confessional. They did the same thing to me once, not with money, but with guilt. The comments under the post turned brutal quickly. Someone reposted Lily's loser caption and wrote, "Imagine stealing from your own sister and bragging about it." Another, "This family sounds like a discount cult. Get out and never look back." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The internet had its own teeth. By evening, the silence from my family's side was deafening. Lily vanished from every platform. Gone, deleted, like she'd never existed. My mother's account went private. My father, the man who posted dad jokes like clockwork, didn't log in for 3 days. And that silence spoke louder than anything they could have said. The next call came from Brian. I ignored it twice, picked up the third. He didn't say hello, just, "You really went scorched earth, huh?" I didn't answer. He sighed, voice heavy. "They're falling apart. Mom hasn't eaten in 2 days. Dad's talking about suing you, but doesn't even know for what. Grandma called me crying, demanding to know the truth." Then he said something I didn't expect. "They're not going to apologize, Marin. They don't think they did anything wrong. They think you're dramatic." I let that sink in. "And what do you think?" Silence stretched. Then he said, "I think they've been doing this for years, and you finally blew it open. I don't blame you." For the first time, I almost believed him. He asked about the car. I told him I sold it. 10,000 flat, clean title. After fees, I walked away with 1,500 more than I'd given them. "Good," he said simply. "You deserved it." Then he hung up. That night, my mom sent me a long, rambling message, paragraphs of circling words. Not an apology, not even close, more like an attempt to rewrite reality. How I misunderstood, how she never meant to hurt me, how I humiliated them, how it wasn't supposed to be like this, but nowhere in all that mess was the word sorry, not once. I read it twice, then left her unread. The next day, I blocked her, then Dad, then Lily. One by one, I shut the doors they had always left cracked, just enough to crawl back in. I didn't do it out of spite. I did it because I was tired of hearing voices that twisted every truth into guilt. I was tired of wondering if maybe I was overreacting, if maybe I was too sensitive. Blocking them wasn't punishment, it was oxygen. Brian was the only one I didn't block. Maybe because he had finally looked at me without the family filter, maybe because some part of me wasn't ready to sever every tie. For a few days, the quiet felt strange. Not awkward, not painful, just light. I came home, parked the car that wasn't theirs anymore, and for the first time in years, I felt like my space belonged only to me. But of course, silence in my family never lasted. 3 days later, Brian texted, "Got time? I'm nearby." 10 minutes later, he knocked on my door. He looked wrecked, dark circles, stale coffee in his hand, like sleep had stopped visiting him. I let him in. He started soft. "You okay?" "I'm fine," I said, and I was. The family's shaken. Lily hasn't left her room. Dad almost got written up at work. Someone taped the vacation photo to his locker. He rubbed his temples. Mom hasn't gone to church in a week. Then he cut to it. "They want you to give the car money back." I laughed, sharp and humorless. "Do they admit what they did?" "No," he said quietly. "They still think it wasn't that bad." That's when it clicked. They weren't sorry. They were scared. I sat across from him, steady. "I'm not giving back a cent. That car was compensation. That post, that was restraint." He didn't argue, just sat there, shifting between loyalty and disbelief. So I told him something I hadn't told anyone. I have a notebook. Not just memories, dates, receipts, screenshots. Years of them. Every time they lied. Every time they scammed. Every time they begged for an emergency that turned out to be a party or a vacation or Lily's whim. And I scanned it, backed it up to the cloud. I leaned in, my voice cold and precise. If they come after me again, legally or otherwise, I'll release it, everywhere. Brian looked at me, searching my face. Then he nodded. I believe you. He stood, paused at the door. They're scared of you now, just so you know. That was the point. That weekend, I finalized the sale. $10,000, a new travel fund, bigger and better than before, direct flights, an Airbnb with a balcony overlooking the ocean, a volcano tour. I booked it the same day, leaving in October. No posts, no announcements, just me. For the first time in years, silence felt like peace. And then a letter arrived, handwritten, from Grandma, her cursive careful, the ink fading in places. I want you to know I read everything. I didn't realize how much you'd been carrying. You deserve that vacation. You deserve peace, even if it means peace without us. No guilt, no sides, just love. I folded the letter and slid it into my travel journal. That was all I needed. I tucked Grandma's letter between the pages of my travel journal, the one I'd been filling with clipped photos of beaches, notes about hikes, restaurant recommendations I'd never thought I'd afford. Her words felt like a seal pressed in wax, quiet, unshakable, more permanent than any apology my parents had never given me. For days, I reread it each night before sleep. It was the only family voice that didn't twist itself into guilt or excuses. Just a simple truth. I deserved peace, even if it meant peace without them. The house felt different after that. Still mine, still quiet, but no longer heavy. I'd walk through the door after work, drop my bag, and realize I wasn't bracing for a phone call. No demands for money, no panicked guilt trips disguised as emergencies. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was full of my own breath. But peace is a strange thing. When you've lived without it for years, it feels fragile, like a glass you don't want to set down too hard. I kept waiting for the crack. It came, faint at first. A message request on Facebook from a number I didn't know. The preview read, "You've ruined us. Hope you're happy." I deleted it without opening. 2 days later, another, longer, spilling words like venom. Selfish, heartless, twisted. I blocked that account too. They were reaching through burners now. For a second, anger flared. Then I thought of my notebook, the one with years of dates, receipts, screenshots, my insurance policy. I touched the spine where it sat on my desk. Just knowing it existed kept me steady. If they came for me again, if they tried to smear me further, I could burn everything down with a single upload. And they knew it. Brian texted once more, a week after his visit. They won't stop talking about you. Dad's obsessed with the car. Mom says she can't show her face in town. Lily, she's just gone. You really broke them. I didn't break them, I wrote back. They did that themselves. He didn't argue, just sent back, fair enough. October crept closer. I watched the countdown app tick from weeks to days. The Hawaii trip was no longer a dream I whispered to myself before collapsing into bed. It was booked, real, waiting. The night before my flight, I pulled out Grandma's letter again, folded and unfolded it until the creases were white. Then I slipped it into my carry-on, tucked safe beside my passport, a blessing to carry across the ocean. At the airport, I didn't post a single picture, no boarding pass selfie, no wing shot over the clouds, no tropical drink raised in mockery. This trip wasn't for them. It wasn't for anyone else's eyes. It was mine. When the wheels lifted and the city shrank beneath me, I felt something unspool in my chest. Not triumph, not revenge, just release. They had stolen my first chance at this. They had mocked me, lied to me, called me loser. But here I was anyway, flying toward the water, toward the sun, toward a life I built out of my own grit. Somewhere down there, my parents were probably still weaving excuses, still trying to convince themselves they hadn't done anything wrong. Maybe they'd keep spinning forever. Maybe one day the weight of their own lies would collapse in on them. That wasn't mine to fix anymore. On the plane, I opened my journal and wrote one last line under Grandma's letter. Peace, even if it means peace without them. I closed the book, leaned back into my seat, and let the horizon rise to meet me.